The scent of hay and leather hit Nathan Young's nostrils as he climbed the ladder to his hayloft that September morning in 1876, ready to toss down feed for his horses, and he froze halfway up when he spotted the slender figure curled in the corner, half buried beneath golden straw, her dark hair spilling across his property like she belonged there. Nathan's ranch sat 3 miles outside El Dorado, Kansas, a modest spread he had built with his own 2 hands over the past 5 years. At 26, he had seen enough of the world to know when someone was running from something, and the young woman sleeping in his barn had that look about her, even in rest. Her dress was torn at the hem, dusty from travel, and her face, peaceful in sleep, showed traces of exhaustion that went deeper than a single night's poor rest. He finished climbing the ladder slowly, careful not to make noise, and crouched near enough to see her properly. She could not have been more than 22 or 23, with delicate features that would have been pretty if not for the bruise yellowing on her left cheekbone. Her hands, clasped together beneath her chin, showed scrapes across the knuckles. Fighter, he thought. Whatever she had run from, she had not gone quietly. Nathan debated with himself for a long moment. He could wake her, demand to know what she was doing on his property, send her on her way before she brought whatever trouble followed her to his door. That would be the smart thing, the safe thing. But his mother had raised him better than that. God rest her soul, and he could not turn away someone so clearly in need. He reached out and touched her shoulder gently, barely a whisper of contact. "Miss," he said softly. "Miss, wake up." Her eyes snapped open, and in that instant, Nathan saw pure terror flash across her face. She scrambled backwards, straw flying, her back hitting the barn wall with a thud that made him wince. "Easy," he said, holding up both hands. "I am not going to hurt you. This is my barn, my property. I just want to know who you are." She stared at him, breathing hard, her green eyes darting between his face and the ladder behind him, clearly calculating whether she could make it past him. In the morning light streaming through the slats, he could see her better now. She was beautiful, even frightened and disheveled, with high cheekbones and a determined set to her jaw that suggested she was not used to being cornered. "Please," she said finally, her voice hoarse. "Please, I will leave. I just needed somewhere to sleep. I have been walking for 2 days, and I could not go any further." Nathan stayed where he was, keeping his posture relaxed, non-threatening. Walking from where? She hesitated, then seemed to decide honesty might serve her better than lies. "From a town about 40 miles east of here." "I do not know its name. I was just trying to get away." "From what?" Her jaw tightened. "From the man who thought he owned me." Nathan nodded slowly. He had suspected something like that. "Your husband?" "No." The word came out sharp, final. "The man who bought my contract when I came over from Ireland 2 years ago. I was supposed to work as a housemaid for 3 years to pay for my passage. He had other ideas about what work I should be doing." Anger flared in Nathan's chest, hot and sudden. He had seen that story play out before, desperate people selling their labor for a chance at a new life, only to find themselves trapped in situations little better than slavery. "What is your name?" "Sarah," she said after a pause. "Sarah Kelly." "Well, Miss Kelly, my name is Nathan Young, and you are on my ranch outside El Dorado, Kansas. You look like you could use a hot meal and a proper bed, not a pile of hay." Suspicion clouded her features. "Why would you help me?" "Because you need help, and I have the means to give it." He stood slowly, brushing straw from his pants. "I am not going to hurt you, and I am not going to force you to do anything you do not want to do. But if someone is looking for you, you are going to need more than a barn loft to hide in." Sarah studied him for a long moment, and Nathan could almost see her weighing her options. Finally, she nodded and stood, steadying herself against the wall. She was taller than he had expected, coming up to his shoulder, and she held herself with a pride that years of hard circumstances had not quite broken. He descended the ladder first, then offered his hand to help her down. She ignored it, climbing down on her own, and he respected that. She was not ready to trust him, not yet, and that was fair enough. The morning sun was fully up now, painting the Kansas prairie in shades of gold and amber. Nathan's ranch house was small but well kept, a two-room structure he had built when he first claimed this land. His horses, 4 of them, were already getting restless in the corral, eager for their morning feed. "The house is not much," Nathan said, leading Sarah toward the front door, "but it is clean and it is safe." Inside, he had her sit at the wooden table he had made himself while he stoked the fire in the stove and set about making breakfast. Sarah watched him warily, positioned near the door, ready to bolt if needed. Nathan pretended not to notice, keeping his movements slow and predictable as he fried bacon and eggs and set coffee to boil. "How long have you lived here?" Sarah asked finally, breaking the silence. 5 years, Nathan replied. "Came out after the war ended. I wanted somewhere quiet, somewhere I could make my own way without anyone telling me what to do or how to do it. You fought in the war, last year of it. I was 17 when I enlisted, 18 when Lee surrendered." He flipped the bacon, watching the grease sizzle. "Saw enough fighting to last me a lifetime. Out here, my biggest enemies are droughts and the occasional coyote getting too brave around the chickens." "You have chickens?" 6 hens and a rooster who thinks he runs the place. Nathan smiled slightly. "Between them and the vegetable garden, I do all right for myself. The horses are my real living, though. I breed and train them, sell them to folks who need good, reliable mounts." He served the food on 2 tin plates and set one in front of her with a fork. Sarah stared at it like she could not quite believe it was real. "Eat," Nathan said gently. "You look half-starved." She picked up the fork hesitantly, then took a bite. He watched her eyes close briefly, savoring the simple meal, and realized it had probably been days since she had eaten properly. He focused on his own plate, giving her privacy to eat without being watched. "This man you are running from," Nathan said after a while, "is he the type to come looking for you?" Sarah swallowed hard. "I do not know. Maybe. He paid good money for my contract, and he does not like losing what he considers his property." "What is his name?" "Marcus Brennan. He owns a large house about a day's ride from here, employs a dozen people, all of them trapped like I was." Her hand tightened around her fork. "He is well connected, respected in his community. If I went to the law, they would send me right back to him." Nathan nodded grimly. That was how it usually worked. Men like Brennan bought respectability along with everything else they owned. "How did you get away?" "I waited until he went to town on business. He usually takes his foreman with him, leaves the rest of the staff to maintain the house. I just walked out the front door and kept walking." She looked down at her plate. "I know he will realize I am gone by now. He will be angry. Let him be angry. He has no claim on you here. He has a legal contract. A contract signed under duress is not worth the paper it is written on." Nathan leaned back in his chair. "And even if it was, you are under my protection now. Anyone who wants to drag you anywhere will have to go through me first." Sarah looked up at him, those green eyes searching his face for deception or ulterior motive. "Why are you doing this? You do not know me." "I know enough," Nathan said simply. "I know you are brave enough to run when you needed to. I know you are a fighter. And I know you deserve better than what that man was giving you." For the first time since waking, Sarah's expression softened slightly. "Thank you," she said quietly. They finished breakfast in companionable silence. Afterward, Nathan showed her the second room of the house, which served as his bedroom. "You can sleep here," he said. "I will take the hay loft. It is comfortable enough." I cannot take your bed. You can and you will. I insist." He pulled fresh linens from a trunk. "There is a creek about a quarter-mile south if you want to wash up. I can heat water for a bath if you would rather stay close to the house." Sarah looked torn between pride and desperate need. Need one. A bath would be wonderful. Nathan hauled water from the well and heated it over the stove, pouring it into the copper tub he kept in the bedroom. He left Sarah with soap and clean towels and a shirt of his that would serve as a nightdress, then made himself scarce, heading out to tend to the horses and give her privacy. The work was familiar and soothing. He fed the horses, checked their hooves, spent time with the young mare he was training to saddle. His thoughts kept drifting back to the woman in his house, to the bruise on her face and the determination in her eyes. He had meant what he said about protecting her, but he wondered what that protection might cost. By the time he returned to the house, it was nearly noon. Sarah emerged from the bedroom wearing his shirt, which hung to her knees, her dark hair damp and loose around her shoulders. She had scrubbed the dirt from her face and arms, revealing skin that was naturally pale, dusted with freckles across her nose and cheeks. "I washed my dress," she said. "It is hanging to dry outside. I hope that is all right." "Of course." Nathan tried not to stare. She looked younger like this, softer, though the wariness in her eyes remained. "Are you feeling better?" "Much, thank you." She wrapped her arms around herself. "I should earn my keep while I am here. I can cook, clean, mend clothes. I am good with animals too if you need help with the horses." "You do not need to earn anything. You are my guest." "I need to do something," Sarah said firmly. "I cannot just sit idle. It will drive me mad." Nathan recognized the tone. She needed purpose, needed to feel useful rather than dependent. He could understand that. "All right. If you want to help, I would not say no. The house could use a woman's touch, and I am not the best cook in Kansas." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "I noticed your bacon was burned on one side. It was not burned. It was crispy. It was burned." They spent the afternoon in a careful dance of domesticity. Sarah found her way around his kitchen with ease, inventorying his supplies and making a list of things he needed from town. Nathan worked on mending a section of fence that had come loose, close enough to keep an eye on the house but far enough to give her space. Every so often he would glance up and see her moving past a window, and something in his chest would tighten. He had been alone for 5 years, had convinced himself he preferred it that way. After the war, after watching friends die in mud and blood, he had wanted nothing more than silence and space. He had built this ranch from nothing, had made a life that was simple and peaceful and entirely his own. The last thing he needed was complications. But Sarah Kelly felt less like a complication and more like something that had been missing all along. That evening, she made dinner from the vegetables in his garden and the smoked ham hanging in his larder. The meal was simple but delicious, better than anything Nathan had made for himself in years. They ate together as the sun set, painting the prairie in shades of orange and red. "Tell me about Ireland," Nathan said, breaking the comfortable silence. Sarah's expression grew distant. "I grew up in a small village in County Cork. My parents were farmers, but the land was never kind to us. Too many mouths to feed, not enough food to go around. When the chance came to go to America, I took it. I thought I would make my fortune, send money home, maybe bring my younger siblings over." "Do you still have family there?" "I do not know. I have not been able to send word in 2 years. Brennan controlled all my correspondence." Her voice hardened. "For all I know, they think I am dead. When you are ready, we can write to them. Let them know you are safe." Sarah looked at him with something like wonder. "You would help me do that?" "I would help you do whatever you need." She studied him in the fading light, and Nathan felt the weight of her gaze like a physical thing. "You are a good man, Nathan Young. I am just a man doing what is right. That is rarer than you think. Over the following days, they fell into a rhythm. Sarah took over the cooking and the household tasks, though Nathan insisted she rest more than she worked. She was still recovering from her ordeal, still jumping at sudden sounds, still watching the road from town with worried eyes. Nathan found himself watching her when she was not looking, memorizing the way she moved, the sound of her laugh when he managed to coax one from her. She was wary but not broken, strong but not hardened, and he admired the resilience that let her keep going despite everything she had endured. A week after Sarah arrived, Nathan rode into El Dorado for supplies. The town was small but growing, with a main street of businesses catering to ranchers and farmers. He stopped at the general store first, buying flour and sugar and the other items on Sarah's list. "Stocking up, Nathan?" asked Mr. Peterson, the store owner. "That is more supplies than usual." "I have a guest staying with me for a while," Nathan said carefully. "Figured I should keep the pantry full." Peterson raised his eyebrows but did not pry, and Nathan was grateful for the discretion. He made a few more stops, at the smithy to pick up horseshoes he had ordered, at the post office to check for mail. He was heading back to his horse when he overheard a conversation that made his blood run cold. Two men stood outside the saloon, and one of them was describing a young Irish woman, dark-haired and green-eyed, who had run away from her employer. "Marcus Brennan is offering a $50 reward for information leading to her return," the man said. $50. That is more than I make in 3 months. Nathan kept walking, forcing himself not to react, but his mind raced. Brennan was already spreading the word, turning Sarah's escape into a manhunt. $50 was serious money, enough to make even honest men consider betraying a stranger. He rode home faster than necessary, his horse sensing his urgency. Sarah was hanging laundry when he arrived, and she took one look at his face and knew something was wrong. "What happened?" Nathan dismounted and told her about the reward. Sarah's face went pale, but she did not cry or panic. Instead, she straightened her shoulders and met his eyes. "I should leave. I am putting you in danger." "You are not going anywhere," Nathan said firmly. "Let Brennan offer his reward. No one knows you are here, and I am not about to tell them. Someone will see me eventually. The town is not that far. Then we will be careful. You stay close to the ranch, and I will handle any business in town." He took her hand without thinking, squeezed it gently. "I meant what I said, Sarah. You are under my protection. I am not letting anyone take you." She looked down at their joined hands, then back up at his face. "Why are you so determined to help me?" Nathan opened his mouth to give her a practical answer, something about doing the right thing or common decency. But looking into her eyes, he realized the truth was more complicated than that. In the week she had been here, his house had transformed from a place to sleep into a home. Her presence had filled spaces he had not known were empty, and the thought of her leaving left him hollow. "Because I care what happens to you," he said simply. Sarah's breath caught. For a long moment they stood there, hands clasped, the laundry forgotten. Then she pulled away gently, though not unkindly. "I do not want to care," she said quietly. "Caring makes you vulnerable. I cannot afford to be vulnerable, not now, I know." Nathan stepped back, giving her space. "But for what it is worth, you are safe here. As long as you want to stay, you have a home." The days turned into weeks. Nathan and Sarah moved around each other with increasing ease, learning each other's habits and preferences. She discovered he liked his coffee strong enough to strip paint and could not abide peas in any form. He learned she hummed Irish ballads while she worked and had a sharp wit that could make him laugh without warning. They talked during long evenings, sharing pieces of their pasts. Sarah told him about Ireland, about the green hills and the constant rain, about her mother's stories and her father's quiet strength. Nathan spoke of the war, of friends lost and lessons learned, of the moment he had decided to claim this piece of Kansas and make it his own. "I wanted something that was mine," he explained one night as they sat on the porch, watching stars emerge in the darkening sky. "Something I built with my own hands that no one could take away." "And is it enough?" Sarah asked. "The ranch, the solitude?" Nathan considered the question. A month ago, he would have said yes without hesitation. Now, with Sarah sitting beside him, her presence warm and vital, he was not so sure. "It was," he said honestly, "before. And now." He looked at her, at the way the lamplight from inside caught in her dark hair, at the curve of her cheek and the softness in her eyes when she thought he was not watching. "Now I think maybe I was just telling myself that because I did not know what I was missing." Sarah turned to face him fully, and Nathan could see his own confused feelings reflected in her expression. "Nathan, You do not have to say anything," he interrupted gently. "I know this is complicated. I know you need time. It is not about time." Sarah's voice was barely above a whisper. "It is about fear. I am so afraid, Nathan. Afraid that Brennan will find me, afraid that I will never be free of my past, afraid that if I let myself feel something for you, it will all fall apart." Nathan reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. When she did not, he cupped her face in his hand, his thumb brushing her cheekbone. "Life does not come with guarantees, Sarah. All we can do is choose what we think is worth the risk." She leaned into his touch, closing her eyes. "And you think I am worth the risk? I know you are." When she opened her eyes again, there were tears in them, but she was smiling. "You are either very brave or very foolish, Nathan Young. Probably both." She laughed, the sound breaking something loose between them, and then she was kissing him, tentative at first but growing bolder when he responded. Nathan wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close, feeling her heartbeat against his chest. The kiss was sweet and searching, a question and an answer all at once. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Sarah rested her forehead against his. "This is madness," she whispered. "The best things usually are." They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped in each other's arms under the Kansas stars, and Nathan felt something settle in his chest, something that had been restless for as long as he could remember. The next morning, reality returned with the sound of hoofbeats on the road. Nathan was in the corral with one of his horses when he spotted the rider approaching. His hand went instinctively to the rifle he kept nearby, but he recognized the man before he got close enough to be a threat. Sheriff Tom Dawson, a decent man Nathan had dealt with a few times. Nathan walked out to meet him, positioning himself between the sheriff and the house where Sarah was working. "Morning, Tom. What brings you out this way?" Dawson touched his hat in greeting. "Nathan, I am making rounds, asking if anyone has seen a young woman. Irish, dark hair, green eyes. Her employer is worried about her, says she ran off without notice." Her employer being Marcus Brennan, the sheriff's expression flickered. "You know him." "I know of him. I also know the kind of man who offers a $50 reward for a housemaid is not worried about her welfare. He is worried about losing his property." Dawson shifted in his saddle, looking uncomfortable. "The contract is legal, Nathan. Whatever you or I might think about it, the law says she owes him service. The law also says slavery is abolished, but seems to me Brennan found a way around that." "I am not here to debate the morality of contract labor," Dawson said, his tone sharpening. "I am asking if you have seen this woman." Nathan met his eyes steadily. "No, I have not seen anyone matching that description." It was technically true. He had not seen Sarah when he found her. She had been sleeping. The sheriff studied him for a long moment, and Nathan could see the calculation happening behind his eyes. Dawson was not a bad man, but he was a lawman first, and the law was clear, even if it was unjust. "If you do see her," Dawson said finally, "you are obligated to report it." "I will keep that in mind." After the sheriff left, Nathan stood watching the dust settle from his horse's hooves. Inside the house, Sarah emerged, her face pale. "I heard," she said. "He is looking for me." "He did not find you, and he is not going to." Nathan took her hands in his. "Listen to me, Sarah. We need to be smart about this. You need to stay out of sight when anyone comes around. I will handle any visitors. For how long? How long can we keep hiding? As long as it takes. Brennan will lose interest eventually. He will find someone else to torment, someone easier to catch." But even as he said it, Nathan knew it might not be that simple. Men like Brennan did not like being defied, and $50 was enough money to keep bounty hunters interested for a long time. Over the following weeks, they were more cautious. Sarah stayed inside or close to the house when Nathan had to go into town. She wore his clothes when working outside, tucking her hair under a hat so that from a distance she might be mistaken for a young ranch hand. It was not a perfect disguise, but it was better than nothing. The forced proximity drew them closer. They worked side by side during the days, Nathan teaching Sarah about horses while she taught him proper cooking techniques. In the evenings, they would sit together, sometimes talking, sometimes just enjoying the comfortable silence that had grown between them. One night, nearly 2 months after Sarah had arrived, they were sitting by the fire when she said, "I have been thinking about my family. About writing to them like you suggested. We can do that. I will post the letter next time I go to town. What if Brennan intercepts it? What if he uses it to find me? We will be careful. We do not have to mention where you are, just that you are safe." Nathan moved closer to her on the small sofa he had dragged in from the barn. "Your family deserves to know you are alive." Sarah nodded slowly. "I want them to know I am all right. I want them to know I did not forget about them." They composed the letter together, Sarah's words and Nathan's handwriting. She kept it vague, saying only that she had left her previous situation and found somewhere safe, that she was well and thinking of home. At the end, she included Nathan's name and the general delivery address for El Dorado, in case they wanted to write back. "You think they will respond?" Sarah asked as Nathan sealed the envelope. "I think if my sister wrote to me after 2 years of silence, I would move heaven and earth to reply." The letter went out the next day, and then there was nothing to do but wait. The waiting brought them even closer. Nathan found himself looking for excuses to be near Sarah, to touch her hand in passing or catch her eye across the room. She responded in kind, her smiles coming easier, her laughter more frequent. One afternoon in late November, Nathan was teaching Sarah to ride one of his gentler horses. She had mentioned never learning properly as a child, and he had insisted she should know how, especially living on a ranch. "Keep your heels down," he instructed, walking beside the horse as Sarah sat nervously in the saddle. "And do not pull on the reins so hard. She will respond to gentle pressure. I feel like I am going to fall off. You are not going to fall. I am right here." Sarah loosened her grip slightly and the horse responded, walking more smoothly. "Oh, I am doing it." Nathan grinned at her excitement. "You are a natural." They practiced for an hour, Nathan guiding the horse in slow circles around the corral while Sarah gained confidence. By the end, she was directing the horse herself, her face flushed with pride. "This is wonderful," she said as Nathan helped her dismount. "I feel so free up there." "Freedom looks good on you." She was still in his arms from the dismount, and they stood there for a moment, close enough that Nathan could see the flecks of gold in her green eyes. The moment stretched, heavy with possibility, and then Sarah closed the distance between them and kissed him. This kiss was different from the first. There was no hesitation in it, no uncertainty. It was a claiming, a declaration, and Nathan responded with equal fervor, his hands tangling in her hair as he deepened the kiss. They stumbled backward until Sarah's back hit the corral fence, and Nathan pulled away just enough to catch his breath. "Sarah," he said, his voice rough, "if we do not stop now, I am not sure I will be able to." "Then do not stop," she whispered against his lips. They made it to the house, barely. Nathan's bedroom, Sarah's bedroom now, though the distinction hardly mattered anymore. They undressed each other slowly, carefully, each touch a revelation. Nathan had been with women before, but never like this, never with someone who felt like coming home. Afterward they lay tangled in the sheets, Sarah's head on Nathan's chest, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. "I love you," Nathan said into the quiet. He had not planned to say it, but once the words were out, he knew they were true. "I know it is fast. I know we have only known each other a few months, but I love you, Sarah Kelly." Sarah lifted her head to look at him, her eyes bright with tears. "I love you too. I tried not to. I told myself it was too dangerous, too foolish, but I love you anyway." "Then marry me." "Nathan, I mean it. Marry me, be my wife, not just my guest. Let me protect you properly, let me give you my name and everything I have. Brennan will not respect a marriage. The contract is still valid. To hell with the contract. To hell with Brennan." Nathan sat up, bringing Sarah with him. "Listen to me. If you are my wife, you are family. I will fight for you, I will protect you, and I will never let anyone take you from me. That has to count for something." Sarah cupped his face in her hands. "It counts for everything. Yes, Nathan. Yes, I will marry you." They married a week later, in a small ceremony at the church in El Dorado. Nathan had spoken to the pastor beforehand, explaining the situation without going into too much detail. The pastor, an understanding man named Reverend Matthews, agreed to perform the ceremony with just him and his wife as witnesses. Sarah wore a simple blue dress Nathan had bought for her in town, and she had woven wildflowers into her hair despite the late season. She was the most beautiful thing Nathan had ever seen. "Do you, Nathan Young, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward?" "I do." "And do you, Sarah Kelly, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward?" "I do." "Then, by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife." Nathan kissed his bride there in the small church, and when they pulled apart, Sarah was crying and laughing at the same time. "I never thought I would have this," she whispered. "I never thought I would be this happy." "Get used to it, Mrs. Young. I plan to keep you this happy for the rest of our lives." They returned to the ranch as husband and wife, and for a few precious weeks, it felt like nothing could touch them. Winter was coming to Kansas, and they spent their days preparing for it, stocking supplies and winterizing the barn. At night, they would curl up together in front of the fire, Sarah reading aloud from the books Nathan owned while he worked on repairing tack or carving small figures from wood. Christmas came and went quietly, just the two of them exchanging small gifts. Nathan gave Sarah a locket he had bought in town, with space inside for a small photograph. Sarah gave him a scarf she had knitted in secret, the stitches a little uneven but made with love. "It is perfect," Nathan said, wrapping it around his neck. "It is crooked. It is perfect because you made it." They were building a life together, brick by brick, moment by moment, and Nathan had never been happier. But happiness, he knew from experience, was a fragile thing. In late January, trouble came calling in the form of 3 men on horseback. Nathan spotted them from the corral and immediately sent Sarah inside with instructions to stay hidden. He met the men in the yard, his rifle held casually but ready. The man in front was well-dressed, with cold eyes and a cruel mouth. Nathan knew without being told that this was Marcus Brennan. "Mr. Young, I presume," Brennan said, not bothering with pleasantries. "I am looking for a woman who belongs to me. I have reason to believe she might be here." "I do not know what you are talking about. Do not play games with me. Her name is Sarah Kelly and she owes me 2 years of service. I have a legal contract and I will have what is mine." "You are mistaken on both counts," Nathan said evenly. "First, no one here owes you anything. Second, Sarah Kelly does not exist anymore." Brennan's eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about? The woman you are looking for is now Sarah Young, my wife, and you have no claim on her." The silence that followed was dangerous. Brennan's face darkened with rage, and the 2 men flanking him shifted in their saddles, hands moving toward their weapons. "You think a marriage changes anything?" Brennan spat. "The contract was signed before your wedding. It still stands." "I disagree. And I think a judge would too, especially once he hears about the conditions you kept her in." Nathan raised his rifle slightly, just enough to make his point. "Now I am going to ask you politely to leave my property, and if you come back, it will not be polite anymore." For a tense moment, Nathan thought Brennan might call his bluff. The man's hand hovered near his hip where a pistol was visible, but Nathan's stance was steady, his aim clear, and eventually Brennan backed down. "This is not over," he said coldly. "I will take this to court. I will have the law on my side. You do that. In the meantime, stay off my land." Brennan wheeled his horse around and rode off, his men following. Nathan did not lower his rifle until they were out of sight, and even then his hands were shaking slightly from the adrenaline. Sarah emerged from the house, her face pale. "He is going to court. Let him. We will get a lawyer, we will fight this properly." But fighting it properly meant money they did not have much of and courts that favored men like Brennan. Nathan knew the odds were not in their favor, but he would fight anyway. For Sarah, he would fight anything. The next few weeks were tense. Nathan rode into El Dorado and spoke with the only lawyer in town, a man named Henry Patterson who listened to their story with a grave expression. "The law is not on your side," Patterson said bluntly. "Contract labor is legal, and Brennan's contract appears to be valid. The marriage complicates things, but it does not dissolve the contract. What are our options? You could pay out the remainder of the contract. 2 years of labor at the rate he was paying her, plus damages for the time she has been gone." "How much would that be?" Patterson did some calculations. "Around $300. Nathan felt his stomach sink. $300 was more than he had, more than he could raise without selling the ranch. And even if he did, there was no guarantee Brennan would accept payment instead of demanding Sarah's return. "There is another option," Patterson said slowly. "We could argue that the contract was obtained under false pretenses, that Brennan misrepresented the nature of the work. If we can prove he was abusing her, forcing her into situations beyond the scope of a housemaid's duties, a judge might void the contract. And if we cannot prove it, then Sarah will have to return to fulfill her contract, or you will have to pay." Nathan rode home with a heavy heart. Sarah was waiting for him, and he told her everything Patterson had said. She listened without interrupting, her face growing more troubled with each word. "I will not go back to him," she said when Nathan finished. "I would rather die. It is not going to come to that. You do not have $300, Nathan, I know you do not, and we cannot prove what Brennan did. It was just him and me, his word against mine. No court will believe me over him." Nathan pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. "We will figure something out, I promise." But as the days passed, Nathan could not see a way forward. Every option seemed to lead to disaster. He could not raise the money, could not prove Brennan's abuse, could not keep Sarah safe through legal means. The answer, when it came, was unexpected. A letter arrived at the general store, addressed to Sarah Kelly, care of Nathan Young. The postmark was from Ireland, from County Cork. Nathan brought it home with trembling hands, and Sarah opened it with tears already streaming down her face. Inside was a letter from her brother, Patrick, written in a careful, unpracticed hand. The letter said that their parents had passed away the previous year, and that Patrick had inherited the small farm. He had worked hard, had managed to sell off some land to developers, and had more money than he knew what to do with. He wanted to bring his siblings to America, wanted to give them the opportunities their parents had dreamed of. And then, at the end of the letter, was a promise. If Sarah needed anything at all, he would help. He had enclosed a bank draft for $500 as proof of his sincerity. Sarah stared at the draft like it was a miracle. $500, she whispered. Nathan, this could pay off the contract and still leave us enough to live on. Nathan looked at the draft, at the lifeline Sarah's brother had unknowingly thrown them, and felt hope kindle in his chest for the first time in weeks. We could be free of Brennan forever. They took the money to Henry Patterson, who drew up an offer to Marcus Brennan. The full $300 to satisfy the contract, plus an additional $50 as a settlement for any perceived damages. It was more than fair, more than generous, and Brennan would be a fool to refuse. But refusing was exactly what Brennan did. The letter came back with a curt response. The contract would be fulfilled as written, or Sarah would face legal consequences. He does not want the money, Sarah said, her voice hollow. He wants me. He wants to punish me for leaving. Nathan crumpled the letter in his fist. Then we will take this to court and let a judge decide. The trial was set for early March in the county courthouse, 20 miles from El Dorado. Nathan and Sarah rode in together. Sarah dressed in her best clothes, Nathan in the suit he had worn to their wedding. Henry Patterson met them there, looking less confident than Nathan would have liked. The courtroom was small and stuffy, filled with curious onlookers. Brennan sat at the front with his own lawyer, a slick-looking man from Kansas City who probably cost more than Nathan made in a year. The judge, a stern man named Harrison, called the court to order. Brennan's lawyer spoke first, laying out the case with practiced ease. The contract was legal and binding, signed by Sarah Kelly of her own free will in exchange for passage to America. She had failed to fulfill the terms of the contract and was therefore in breach. The law was clear. She must return to complete her service or pay restitution. When it was Patterson's turn, he argued that the contract had been obtained under false pretenses, that Sarah had not understood what she was agreeing to, that Brennan had abused his position as her employer. But without proof, without witnesses, the argument fell flat. Then Patterson called Sarah to the stand. She walked to the front of the courtroom with her head held high, and Nathan felt a surge of pride. Whatever happened, she would not cower before Brennan. Patterson asked her to describe her experience working for Brennan. Sarah spoke clearly, her voice steady despite the trembling Nathan could see in her hands. She described the long hours, the poor conditions, the way Brennan had propositioned her repeatedly, making it clear that her refusal to comply would result in punishment. "Did he ever strike you?" Patterson asked. "Yes, multiple times. Can you show the court?" Sarah stood and lifted her sleeve, revealing scars on her forearm that Nathan had noticed but never asked about. "These are from when he grabbed me and twisted my arm behind my back. He said if I did not submit to him, he would make my life hell." A murmur went through the courtroom. Brennan's lawyer stood quickly. "Objection. "There is no proof these injuries came from my client, sustained," Judge Harrison said. "Mrs. Young, do you have any witnesses who can corroborate your claims?" Sarah's face fell. "No, Your Honor, it was always just him and me." The rest of the trial proceeded with grim inevitability. Brennan took the stand and painted himself as a concerned employer who had invested significant money in bringing Sarah to America, only to have her run away without cause. He was calm, reasonable, utterly believable. When the judge retired to consider his verdict, Nathan held Sarah's hand and prayed for a miracle. The miracle came, but not from the judge. As they waited for the verdict, a woman entered the courtroom, small and nervous-looking, with her hat pulled low over her face. She walked straight to Henry Patterson and whispered something urgent. Patterson's eyes widened. He stood quickly and approached the bench. "Your Honor, I would like to call a new witness." The judge frowned. "The testimony phase is over, Mr. Patterson. This witness has information directly relevant to the case, Your Honor. I respectfully request permission to hear her testimony." Judge Harrison considered, then nodded. "Very well, but make it quick." The woman took the stand and removed her hat. She was young, maybe 18, with brown hair and frightened eyes. When asked to state her name, she said, "Anna Smith. I work for Marcus Brennan." The courtroom erupted in whispers. Brennan's face went white. "Miss Smith," Patterson said, "can you tell the court about your experience working for Mr. Brennan?" Anna's voice was small but growing stronger. "He hired me 6 months ago after Sarah left. He told me I would be a housemaid, that I would have room and board and fair wages. But he lied. He expected me to do more than housework. When I refused, he hit me. He said the same thing he said to Sarah, that he owned me, that I had to do what he said." "Do you have proof of this abuse?" Anna unbuttoned the collar of her dress, revealing bruises around her neck. "This is from 2 days ago. He choked me when I said I wanted to leave." The courtroom was dead silent. Even Brennan's lawyer seemed at a loss for words. "Why did you come forward now?" Patterson asked gently. "Because I heard about the trial. I heard that Sarah got away, that she found someone who protected her. And I thought, if she could be brave enough to run, I could be brave enough to tell the truth." Anna looked directly at Brennan, her chin lifting. "I quit. I do not care about the contract anymore. You can sue me, you can try to drag me back, but I will not work for you another day." Judge Harrison called for order as the courtroom buzzed with reaction. He looked at Brennan with undisguised disgust. "Mr. Brennan, do you have anything to say in response to these allegations?" Brennan's composure had cracked. His face was red, his hands clenched. "She is lying. She is in league with Sarah Young. They are both trying to destroy my reputation." "I have never met Sarah Young before today," Anna said firmly, "but I wish I had. I wish I had run away like she did." The judge deliberated for less than 10 minutes. When he returned, his verdict was swift and decisive. "In light of the testimony presented today, I find that the contract between Marcus Brennan and Sarah Kelly, now Sarah Young, was obtained and enforced through fraudulent and abusive means. The contract is hereby voided. Mr. Brennan, you have no further claim on Mrs. Young. Furthermore, I am recommending to the county prosecutor that charges be brought against you for assault and false imprisonment." Nathan felt Sarah sag against him in relief. It was over. They had won. Brennan stood, furious and sputtering. "This is an outrage. That woman is lying. They are both lying. Mr. Brennan, you will sit down and be silent, or I will hold you in contempt," Judge Harrison said coldly. "This court is adjourned." As they left the courthouse, Nathan pulled Sarah into a fierce embrace. "We are free," he whispered into her hair. "You are free." Sarah was crying, but for the first time since Nathan had known her, they were tears of pure joy. "I cannot believe it. I thought for sure he would win." They found Anna outside, standing alone and looking lost. Sarah went to her immediately, taking her hands. "Thank you," Sarah said. "What you did in there, the courage it took, I cannot ever repay you." "You do not need to repay me," Anna said. "You gave me hope. That was enough." Nathan stepped forward. "Do you have somewhere to go, Miss Smith?" "Someone to help you?" Anna shook her head. "I have nowhere, but I will figure something out." Nathan and Sarah exchanged a look, and Nathan could see his own thoughts reflected in his wife's eyes. "Come with us," Sarah said. "Come back to the ranch. You can stay with us until you figure out what you want to do next." I could not impose. "It is not imposing," Nathan said firmly. "You saved our lives today. The least we can do is offer you a safe place to land." Anna's eyes filled with tears. Thank you both." The three of them rode back to El Dorado together, and then on to the ranch. Anna marveled at the wide open prairie, at the horses and the simple house that Nathan and Sarah called home. She settled into the barn loft, the same place where Sarah had once slept. And for a few weeks she stayed with them, helping around the ranch and regaining her strength. Eventually, Anna decided she wanted to continue west, to California, where she had heard there were opportunities for women willing to work hard. Nathan and Sarah gave her money for the journey, money from what remained of Patrick's bank draft, and saw her off on the stagecoach with promises to write. "She is going to do well," Sarah said as they watched the stage disappear into the distance. "She is stronger than she knows." "Like someone else I know," Nathan said, slipping his arm around his wife's waist. Life settled into a peaceful rhythm after that. Spring came to Kansas, bringing green grass and warm winds. Nathan's horse breeding business grew, his reputation spreading to neighboring counties. Sarah planted a larger garden, started keeping chickens, and began teaching herself to read better using Nathan's books. In May, Sarah realized she was pregnant. She told Nathan one evening after dinner, her hand resting on her still flat stomach. "A baby," Nathan's voice was full of wonder. "We are going to have a baby, we are. In about 6 months, if my counting is right." Nathan pulled her into his arms and spun her around, laughing. "A baby. Sarah, we are going to be parents." They spent the summer preparing, Nathan building a cradle from oak wood while Sarah sewed tiny clothes. They talked about names, about their hopes for their child, about the life they would build together. In November, Sarah went into labor on a cold, clear night. Nathan rode for the midwife in town while their neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, the lawyer's wife, stayed with Sarah. The labor was long and difficult, but when Nathan finally heard the thin wail of a newborn, he nearly collapsed with relief. "It is a boy," the midwife announced, placing the tiny, squalling bundle in Sarah's arms. "A healthy boy." Nathan approached slowly, almost afraid to believe it was real. Sarah looked exhausted but radiant, and the baby in her arms was red-faced and perfect. "Hello, little one," Sarah whispered. "Hello, Thomas." They had agreed on the name weeks ago. Thomas, after Nathan's father who had died when Nathan was young. Thomas Patrick Young, to honor both their families. Nathan touched his son's tiny hand, felt the impossibly small fingers curl around his own, and felt his heart expand in a way he had not known was possible. "Hello, Thomas. I am your father, and I promise I am going to take care of you and your mother for the rest of my life." The years that followed were good ones. Thomas grew into a lively, curious boy with his mother's green eyes and his father's dark hair. When he was 2, Sarah became pregnant again, this time with a daughter they named Grace. Grace arrived with less fanfare than her brother, slipping into the world on a warm spring morning with barely a cry. The ranch prospered. Nathan's horses were sought after throughout Kansas, and he hired help to manage the growing operation. Sarah became known in El Dorado for her kindness and her skill with healing herbs, often helping neighbors when someone fell ill. Patrick did eventually come to America, bringing their younger sister Bridget with him. They settled in Chicago, but visited the ranch several times, marveling at the life Sarah had built. Patrick and Nathan became fast friends, and Thomas adored his Irish uncle who told outrageous stories and taught him colorful phrases in Gaelic. Anna wrote regularly from California, where she had opened a boarding house and was doing well. She eventually married a shopkeeper and had children of her own, and Sarah treasured every letter, proud of the life her friend had made. Brennan was tried and convicted of assault, serving 2 years in prison. When he was released, he left Kansas in disgrace, and Sarah never heard from him again. The shadow he had cast over her life finally lifted completely. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Nathan and Sarah sat on their porch watching their children play in the yard. Thomas was chasing Grace, both of them shrieking with laughter as they ran through the grass. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. "Do you ever think about that morning?" Sarah asked, leaning against Nathan's shoulder. "The morning you found me in your barn, all the time," Nathan admitted. "I think about how close I came to never meeting you, how different my life would be if you had chosen a different barn to sleep in. I think I was meant to find you, or you were meant to find me." Sarah lifted her head to look at him. "Either way, I thank God every day that you woke me gently instead of chasing me off. You saved my life, Nathan. You saved mine too. I just did not know it needed saving until you showed up." They kissed, a soft, familiar kiss that still made Nathan's heart race even after 10 years. When they pulled apart, Thomas was watching them with the exaggerated disgust of a 10-year-old. "Ugh, they are kissing again," he announced to his sister. Grace, who was 8 and far more romantic, clasped her hands together. "It is because they are in love, silly." "It is because they are embarrassing," Thomas countered, but he was grinning. Nathan stood and scooped both children up, one in each arm, making them squeal. "You think that is embarrassing? Wait until I tell you about the time your mother taught me to cook, and I nearly burned down the kitchen." "You did not," Sarah protested, laughing. "I absolutely did. Ask her about the Great Biscuit Fire of 1877. They went inside together, a family, whole and happy. As Nathan tucked Thomas into bed that night, his son looked up at him with serious eyes. "Papa, how did you know Mama was the right person to marry?" Nathan considered the question carefully. "I knew because she made me want to be braver than I was. She made me want to fight for something beyond myself. And when I was with her, I felt like I had finally come home." Thomas nodded solemnly, filing this information away. "I am going to find someone like that when I grow up." "I hope you do, son. I hope you do." Nathan kissed his son's forehead and went to find Sarah, who was reading to Grace. He stood in the doorway, watching his wife and daughter, and marveled at the life they had built together. From a desperate woman sleeping in his barn to the love of his life, mother of his children, his partner in everything. Sarah had come into his life like a storm, appending everything he thought he knew about himself, and he would not change a single moment of it. "Nathan." Sarah looked up from the book, noticing him watching. "Are you all right?" "I am perfect," he said honestly. Absolutely perfect, and he was. They both were. From that morning when he had found her sleeping in his hayloft to this moment, surrounded by the family they had created together, Nathan had never been more certain of anything in his life. The future stretched before them, full of promise and possibility, and they would face it together as they always had, with love and courage and unwavering faith in each other. Their story had started with a gentle touch and a kind offer, and it had blossomed into something neither of them could have imagined. A home, a family, a love that would endure for the rest of their days. And on quiet nights when the children were asleep and the house was peaceful, Nathan and Sarah would sit together on their porch, watching the stars over the Kansas prairie, and remember the morning that changed everything. The morning he found her sleeping in his hayloft, woke her gently and offered her his home, not knowing he was offering her his heart as well. And she, brave and desperate and hopeful, had taken the chance, had trusted a stranger with kind eyes, and found not just safety but love beyond measure. They lived their years in happiness, watching their children grow and eventually bring grandchildren to visit the ranch. Thomas became a teacher, settling in El Dorado with a wife as strong-willed as his mother. Grace married a lawyer and moved to Kansas City, but visited often, always bringing her children to see the ranch where she grew up. Nathan and Sarah grew old together, their love deepening with each passing year. They never forgot how they had found each other, never took for granted the miracle of that September morning. And when their time finally came, many years later, they went peacefully, knowing they had lived a life full of love, purpose, and joy. The ranch remained in the family, passed down through generations, and the story of how Nathan found Sarah became family legend, told and retold to wide-eyed grandchildren who could hardly believe their respectable grandparents had started with such adventure. But it was true, every word. From the moment Nathan climbed that ladder and found a stranger sleeping in his hay, to the moment he took his last breath with Sarah's hand in his, surrounded by the family they had created together. It was a love story for the ages, born in the wild Kansas prairie, tempered by hardship and strengthened by unwavering devotion. A cowboy and a runaway who found in each other everything they had been searching for and built a legacy that would endure long after they were gone.